Exorcism, they can deliver a.
Welcome, everybody. It is October 8th. The trees are beautiful. The weather's gorgeous. At this time, it's not raining. Hooray. And we have a wonderful speaker. So if we could get started, well, Jody, you want to come up and have the prayer? And then Jeff is going to follow with the pledge and the four-way test.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to start, I always like to read a little bit of the word before I pray. So chosen by God for this new life of love, dress in the wardrobe God picked out for you, compassion, kindness, humility, quiet strength, discipline, be even tempered, content in second place, quick to forgive an offense, and forgive as quickly and completely as the Master forgave you. And I thought as Rotarians in service above self, that really spoke. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful fall day. We give thanks for our Rotary family and for all those with us today and for our Rotarians watching from home. There's much suffering in our world, and we pray to you for wisdom and guidance on how to serve our brothers and sisters in a Christ-like manner and offer our help. Allow us to not just profess our faith, but put faith in action through love. May we love one another as our Father in heaven loves us. We lift up today Bill Coles, Bob Belafonte, and Robert and Dottie Fiddler in your name. And we give thanks for the food we are eating or about to eat. And because the table before us is set, and we need to praise for the abundance we are given. In the name of the Father, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with justice for all. Join together the four-way test. All the things we think say are new. Number one, is it true? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build and better friendships? Number four, will it be beneficial to all?
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here on this Friday, October 8th, meeting of the Brentwood Rotary Club, and excited to introduce a few guests that we have here. I am looking for Jamie Wildman, who I actually have right here, who is a guest of Jack Massari and found us on the website. Jack, would you like to introduce Jamie?
Wildman, he's William Blair. Great to be here.
Jamie, welcome.
Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you for seeking us out. We hope that you enjoy your time with us today. We've got a great speaker that I'm sure you will enjoy. Our speaker this afternoon has a couple of guests, but they're also guests of Jonathan Merck. So I'm going to let Jonathan introduce a few special guests today.
Thank you. We're delighted to have a number of folks from Vanderbilt University with us today. We have Ms. Melanie Moran, who is the Associate Vice Chancellor. And then we have Lynn Maddox, who is part of the government relations team, and also Mr. Cedric Edwards, who's sitting over there off to the side with us as well. So glad to have you with us today.
Jonathan,
Thank you.
you want to introduce Lauren?
Well,
You want to introduce Lauren?
Lauren.
I introduced the Vanderbilt folks. I also have my assistant, Lauren Ward, with us today.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Lynn, Melanie, Lauren, Cedric, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we hope that you enjoy your time with us today.
Okay.
With that, President Crossley, meeting's yours.
Anybody else? All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and start by having a Rotary moment. Linus has got that on there. We have a lot of new members, and maybe you didn't know all the things that went on in the background, or maybe you wondered why it took so darn long to get your membership through. This is kind of this is the process that we're doing. If it's not loading, that's cool. I can talk about it. First of all, I'm going to do the flow chart when it comes up. But the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to invite a guest to come. You want them to come 2 or 3 times to meet more than one person in the group. You want to have a chance for them to meet and see if, they enjoy being with the folks that we've got here at Rotary. Then after that, you'll get a ask a membership chair, or you could ask me, or you could go online to our website and download the current form for application. You'll need to sign it as the sponsor. Then you'll need to get 2 more Rotarians in the club to sign it. Then they, of course, would fill it out and talk about what they do for a living, where they live, and that sort of thing. And then that would be submitted to the classification committee. Once it reaches the classification committee, everything is, we say, yes, we've received it, but we don't talk outside of that to figure out what's going on, because those are dedicated conversations, so to speak. We've never really had any trouble in there, but if there was something that was found out about a human being that we didn't know, and we would appreciate finding that out, not necessarily in classification, between that and then a second time with the board. By the third time, you are actually getting into the 2-week period in our reflections. Takes 2 weeks in the reflections for everybody to see the name in case the person hasn't met it and they might know something about it. It sounds so hideous all the time, but I think we know that for the most part, we've never had that happen. And then finally, we have the name and the sponsor get together, and we end up having them meet with the club and be introduced to the club after they've gone through an orientation. The orientation is done by a couple past presidents, tells them of the financial responsibilities, tells them of the service responsibilities, and explains the history of the club and just pretty much everything. Before they even have the orientation, they are given a letter that says, we're inviting you to be a member of the club and to have orientation. But that letter also talks about the different things that are their responsibilities for the club. So you can see it's a process, but it's very, very important for RI to have that process and for this club to have that process. So just if you ever wonder why it takes so long, that's why it takes so long. All right. Happy Bucks, Sybil. The Zoom. We're trying to make sure Steve's fixing it because it's broken. Awesome, Steve.
Hey. Are you going to talk? I know. It's what I figured. No, he doesn't. Poor Alan. I was rooting for you.
He's still
I don't
recovering.
really have $1, but can you, yeah, I don't want that. How about those Vanderbilt Commodores? Over UConn. So anyway, we'll beat Arkansas.
You feel so bad.
After 15 months and 2 canceled trips, we're finally leaving for Scotland Sunday.
Yay.
Excellent. Love it.
George.
Hi, I wanted to introduce myself again, George Barrett, and I'm a happy dollar because my grandson, who graduated from Butler about a year ago, has been happily employed at a place called the Bearded Iris downtown. And I'm plugging it a little bit. It's a brewery, and he is employed in marketing and advertising, and he is just as happy as can be.
All right. Congratulations.
Anyone else?
Susie.
Susie.
Thank you. I'm putting it $1 because on your table is an order form. You can look like Linus and myself and Rick. We all have on our Rotary Club shirts. If you would like to order one, we are placing an order. They're in 2 different colors. They're in this color and then a royal blue. And this year you can also add the word golf underneath the club logo if you want one to promote the golf tournament. So for the rest of this month, there are order forms. I'm also going to email one to everybody, but please order a shirt now. Thanks.
They're on your table. Kip.
Taking my workout. Hey, it's all good. I need to move around.
I just came from the Ravenwood homecoming parade, so I'm happy. Whoop, whoop, whoop. But also, I'm very happy. I am a Vanderbilt alum. Anchor down, go Doors.
Anyone else? think that's it, Betsy.
All right. You all got, by the way, a purple pinky email. If you want to order some great donuts and give them away, if you can't eat them, that would be wonderful. All those points really are leveraged incredibly so that when you buy a box of donuts, it gets you 180 RI points, which is just, that's a heck of a leverage. So please do that. You have that email. If you need me to send it to you again, just let me know. We'll do that. The pickup day for that is October 20th. You pick your donuts up. And that's all goes to fund World Polio Day, which will be October 24th. It's been a project for many, many years in Rotary. So it goes for a great cause. All right. I'm going to let you introduce our speaker.
It's an honor to introduce you to my new friend, Chancellor Daniel Diermeier. An internationally renowned political scientist and management scholar, Daniel Diermeier is the 9th Chancellor of Vanderbilt University. Diermeier is a fellow American of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the Guggenheim Foundation, and the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research. He has published 4 books and more than 100 research articles, mostly in the fields of political science, economics, and management, but also in other areas ranging from linguistics, sociology, psychology to computer science, operations research, and applied mathematics. Prior to his position at Vanderbilt, Diermeier served in leadership and faculty roles at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, and as the Dean of the Harris School of Public Policy at the University of Chicago. From 2016 until 2020, he was provost of the University of Chicago, where he was responsible for all academic and research programs across the university and oversaw the university's budget of $5 billion. Throughout his career, Diermeier has been an advisor to governments, nonprofits, and leading companies, mostly in the area of crisis management. He has served on the board of several nonprofit organizations, the technology company Citybase until its acquisition by GTY Technologies, and the management board of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So watch yourself. Okay. He is currently a board member of Vanderbilt University Medical Center, the Field Museum, and Argonne National Laboratory. A native of Berlin, Germany, and a first-generation college graduate, Diermeier earned his PhD in political science from the University of Rochester. He also holds a master's degree in political science from the University of Munich and in philosophy from the University of Southern California. Please join me in welcoming Chancellor Diermeier.
A mighty impressive microphone here. So thank you, Jonathan, for the kind introduction and good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be with you here today. On behalf of Vanderbilt University, I want to extend my gratitude for the work you do every day to strengthen our communities and our Middle Tennessee region. I had the honor of speaking at the National Rotary Club in July, and there I said how excited I was for Vanderbilt and for this region, where we have seen both phenomenal growth to embark on a new era of innovation and global impact together. It is leaders like you working for a common good who will pave the way for new opportunities and future achievements. Vanderbilt has been a fixture in the national area for almost a century and a half now, and we are proud to be an essential part of Middle Tennessee. And I know already, and I suspect there's some more, we have some Vanderbilt alum and parents with us here today. Today, I'd like to tell you about Vanderbilt as it is in 2021, our purpose, what we stand for, and how we're reaching out more than ever to be part of civic life at this crucial moment for our region. Vanderbilt, at its core, is a community dedicated to the lifelong realization of human potential. Yes, we are a university, highly sought after by students across the country and the world, and known for our transformative education. And yes, we're a globally respected research institution whose path-breaking discoveries and innovations touch lives every day. And yes, we're deeply interconnected with Vanderbilt University Medical Center, an international center of excellence in healthcare and medical research, and an institution that has been instrumental and impactful in our fight against COVID-19. Vanderbilt is proudly all of these things, but we intentionally define ourselves as a community dedicated to having our members reach their full potential. And that idea is central to how we see ourselves and our mission. Vanderbilt was established 8 years after the end of the Civil War. As a fractured nation sought to come back together, a Southern Methodist bishop, with the help of some East Coast tycoon, not usually prone to philanthropy, founded Vanderbilt on the principle of unity, of bringing people and ideas together in the service of the common good. That principle remains the foundation of everything we do today. We believe transformative education and innovation are most likely to happen when there's cooperation and collaboration. We believe challenges are better met and problems better solved when people acknowledge their shared interests and work together for a common purpose. Clearly a value we share with the Rotary Club. And we believe individuals learn best, grow best, and realize their full potential in such a supportive community. And at Vanderbilt, the idea that standing together means as much as any one of us standing out individually is part of what makes us different. It certainly distinguishes us from many other great universities. We prioritize community and teamwork because we believe that when we work together, we can do anything. We experienced this so profoundly last year when we safely brought students back to our campus as the COVID-19 pandemic raged. Plenty of schools didn't even try to teach their students in person, and plenty of critics said it could not be done. And indeed, it was not easy. It required us at Vanderbilt to rethink everything, from how we teach, to how we serve lunch, to how we move people in and out of buildings. It demanded a heroic and extraordinarily unified effort from everybody in our Vanderbilt community. Students, faculty, staff, parents, even alums, everyone. Our School of Nursing pulled together to stand up a comprehensive teaching, contract tracing, and quarantining program in a matter of weeks, one that now has become a national model. Our faculty had to quickly master new teaching methods, hybrid classes, where some students would attend in person and others attend remotely. Research had to be conducted within the strict limitations forced by the pandemic. And our staff, many of them suddenly working, as you well know, from their dens and kitchen tables, worked with little rest for months on end, often for 14 to 16 hours every day, 7 days a week. And our students had to step up and stick together and be compliant with rigid safety protocols that dramatically limited their social lives. But working together, guided by science, collaborating with communities throughout Nashville, and with safety as our watchword, we prevailed, we succeeded. We were able to carry out our mission of research and residential education. We finished our year with no major outbreaks and without a single case of transmission in our classroom or labs. We safely held in-person graduation ceremonies for not one, but 2 classes separated by 2 weeks. And by nearly every measure, we have come through the pandemic far stronger than many other peers. As a matter of fact, Vanderbilt is today stronger than when the pandemic started. All of this made last year's response to COVID-19 Vanderbilt's proudest moment. Through it, we learned the invaluable lesson that we were capable of much more than we knew. And our success came down to our deeply held values and our common purpose, our sense of one community. It is with this experience fresh in our minds and with the confidence that it has given us that we now consider Vanderbilt's future. And it's important to note and to emphasize that community does not automatically mean consensus. Cooperation does not mean to agree with each other all the time or march in lockstep according to one set of beliefs. Quite the contrary. I now lead a campus of 12,000 students, 4,700 faculty, and more than 4,000 staff, all from different backgrounds, experiences, and belief systems. And that means differing opinions and differing point of views. At Vanderbilt, we wouldn't have it any other way. A university of all places must encourage and welcome different points of view. For what is a university if it's not a place to reason our way through the most essential questions of our time and argue our way to something approaching understanding and truth? Our campus, like all college campuses, must be proving ground where ideas can be tested and opinions challenged. Diversity of thought, opinion, and perspective, and the free exchange of ideas are the soil from which ideas, insights, and impact grow. At Vanderbilt, we embrace discussion, exploration, and yes, debate. Because discussion, exploration, and free debate are the engines of personal growth, innovation, and progress. This is why Vanderbilt is committed to civil discourse, free speech, and the open and vigorous exchange of ideas. These principles are not new, they're grounded in a history. For example, during the turbulent 1960s, one of my predecessors, Chancellor Alexander Hurt, was criticized for inviting figures then considered too controversial to speak on campus, figures such as Black Power and Black Panther leader Stokely Carmichael. Explaining his commitment to free speech, Chancellor Hurt said, and I quote, "Young people, and especially young people in college, cannot be shielded from the winds of opinion in our world." He said, "The university's obligation is not to protect students from ideas, but rather to expose them to these ideas and to help them make them capable of handling and hopefully having ideas of their own." More than 5 decades later, we still live by these values. Our faculty senate, which is the representation of our faculty at Vanderbilt, affirmed them in a resolution earlier this year, committing to provide, and I quote, "an environment for open inquiry and the vigorous exploration and free expression of ideas." At the same time, and that's important, we uphold an expectation that debate on our campus will be respectful and civil. We reject shouting and sloganeering and character attacks in favor of dialogue and facts. Because engaging with others in civil, spirited, fact-based debate enables each of us to better know our own beliefs and put stronger foundations under our arguments. At the same time, it deepens our understanding and respect for views held by others. Civil discourse keeps the lines of communication and cooperation open. Engaging in a discussion means committing to listen, learn, and stay open to persuasion by a better argument. These values are essential not only on college campuses today, but in a functioning democracy. Safeguarding free expression with promoting civil discourse might be a university's most sacred duty. If we can productively debate and negotiate our differences and peacefully coexist on a college campus, and if we can send more people into society with these skills and sensibilities, as well as proper respect for community and our shared identity, then there's hope yet for the American experiment. Indeed, Vanderbilt's commitment to community extends well beyond the borders of our campus. For nearly 150 years, we have been an integral part of the cultural and economic fabric of Nashville and Middle Tennessee. Over that time, the university's engagement with our neighbors has ebbed and flowed. Some of you might remember when, in the 1990s, then Mayor Phil Bredesen described Vanderbilt as a big gorilla that has held itself apart from the community. He did so in no less a public forum than Sports Illustrated. Regrettably, Vanderbilt has at times earned such criticism. There have been instances when the university conceived itself as an institution in Middle Tennessee, but not necessarily of Middle Tennessee. You can see this even in some of our early architecture in which we literally walled ourselves off from the city and constructed buildings whose backs were turned to the neighborhood. Those days are well behind us. Vanderbilt is not and must never be a place apart. A vital university needs a thriving community and vice versa. Today, we are literally reshaping the campus to reflect our connection to the surrounding community. Our current construction on West End, for example, is designed to erase the boundaries between university and city. But our connection to Nashville and Middle Tennessee is more than just architectural. We have for many years been a reliable economic engine for the region. According to our most recent impact report, Vanderbilt in 2019, for example, generated $12 billion in economic activity, 80,000 jobs, and more than $4 billion in labor income, and more than $280 million in tax revenue for the state of Tennessee. In addition, we have built robust programs and infrastructure supporting technological and cultural advancement in our region. These include our Center for Technology Transfer and Commercialization, which helps us researchers turn innovations into products, make them available to society, and generating wealth as well as revenue that supports future research. We often we offer startup boot camps inside the Wondery, one of our newest additions to the Vanderbilt campus, and our Center for Innovation and Design, along with programs supporting entrepreneurship from the Owen School of Management and our School of Engineering. Teams of Vanderbilt innovators have won at South by Southwest, been accepted into Techstars, been featured by Forbes, and get that, funded by the Vatican. The Wondery is also now a National Science Foundation's I-Core site, which is an important designation providing seed funding for evidence-based startups. In addition, we offer compelling cultural programs through our School of Music, the Blair School, our Chancellor Lecture Series, and other programs. And we are proud to be a partner of the National Museum of African American Music, which opened to the public last January. All of that is just a prelude to the civic collaboration we hope will come. As we set the ambitions for our university higher and consider where we want Vanderbilt to be 50 years from now, our relationship with Nashville and Middle Tennessee is more essential than ever. Because both Nashville and Vanderbilt are at a rare and historic inflection point. We are coming of age together. At Vanderbilt, we're enrolling our most qualified and diverse class of students. World-class scholars, innovators, and thinkers make up what is arguably our most expert and accomplished faculty in its history. And we are stronger financially than at any other time in our history. And there's Vanderbilt Athletics, which is such an important source of pride and sometimes heartbreak for our community. Vanderbilt football and other sports are how most people in our region experience Vanderbilt. And over the summer, the Vandy boys baseball team postseason run once again has demonstrated the power of athletics to bring people together. This is why we're making a bold move to advance athletics through our campaign called Vanderbilt United, a $300 million fundraising effort supporting major facilities and operational enhancement that will improve the experience both for our student athletes and our hometown fans alike. We want to make it easier and more enjoyable for you to come to rally around the Commodores and get that feeling that only sports can deliver, the feeling of being on the same team, the feeling of one community. Because the fact is, we are all one community. Nashville, Williamson County, Davidson County, private business, government, institutions of higher learning, all of us in Middle Tennessee, we're all in this together, rising or falling as one region. Our future hinges upon our capacity to working together to make the most of this moment of enormous potential. And the opportunity is very big indeed. Our region is now bursting with momentum and possibilities. 100 people move here every day for good reason. Here in Williamson County alone, the population has increased by some 64,000 residents over the last decade. Culturally and economically, Middle Tennessee has a once-in-a-generation chance to thoughtfully shape our future. As we have seen, the question is not whether our region will grow, but how. That answer is within our control if we seize the moment. Vanderbilt stands ready to play a central role in ensuring that our region claims its place as one of us America's center of innovation and prosperity, and does so in its own way and on its own terms. By building on the bonds of community, by capitalizing on our common strength, by working across our differences, and by creating and problem solving in a spirit of unity and common purpose, we can solidify Middle Tennessee's position as a region admired as much for its quality of life as for its economic horsepower. And we can do it our own way, rooted in the values and culture we all love. The Roman philosopher Seneca famously said that fate leads the willing and drags the reluctant. At Vanderbilt, we're willing, we're able, and we're ready to go in Middle Tennessee, of Middle Tennessee, and for Middle Tennessee. Thank you very much, and I'll now be happy to offer questions.
Civil discourse versus civil disobedience. It's a really interesting thing that while in college, it's so interesting that you want to hear all different viewpoints. How are you helping the young folks that oftentimes are so passionate about what they believe stop and listen to other people?
This is absolutely essential. And I think it's a challenge of our times that we have stopped doing that. We have stopped listening to each other, and we stopped going into discussion and debate, making our own case, providing our arguments, giving our side of the story, but also willing to learn from each other, to listen, and even to be convinced. And that is not stopping at college campuses. Arguably, it's most pronounced in college campuses right now. There's a tendency for our students, maybe not so much at Vanderbilt, but at many other universities, is to fragment into different groups that firmly hold onto their beliefs and have stopped listening to each other. It is absolutely essential for us that we at universities, at university leaders, counter that, bring them together, teach them, or sometimes reteach them to engage in discussions and debate, and make sure that they listen to each other, that they argue fiercely for their point of view, but they do it in a respectful and civil way. Unfortunately, that's not the reality that we face right now. Again, I would say less at Vanderbilt, but at other universities, but it is our most important duty as educators to make sure that our students are part and are able to engage in civil discourse.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the role the university played in the research around COVID-19 and what was accomplished there?
Yes. So I want to give you a little flavor for what this was like. So we had to overnight change the model we operated as universities have operated for 2,300 years. If you go to Plato's Academy in Athens, basically we're doing the same thing. If you want to be a little bit more modern, you go back to the founding of the University of Bologna in 1088. Okay, they had seminars, they had lecture halls. We have more fancy equipment than they have, but fundamentally that was a fully functioning university, and we are in that position. We had overnight to change that model, toss it out of the window, and literally within a couple of days, be able to educate our students and collaborate online. That's a tremendous, tremendous moment of pride and a great accomplishment. Having said that, we very quickly realized that we needed to be able for people to be back together, do their research, and continue our transformative education. So as one of the very few universities in the country, certainly in our peer group, which is kind of the leading 25 research universities in the country, we invited all our students back on campus. We had 85% students back, 50% on campus, 35% in the surrounding area. 15 had to dial in remotely, largely because of visa restrictions for our international students. It was a tremendous effort. It was difficult. It was, when I look back at it, I'm just like, how did we do this? I mean, we had like the simple thing. We are feeding our students in cafeterias and dining halls because we want them to come together and exchange ideas informally. All of that had to be changed to grab and go. And it's not so easy to do this for 14,000 students. We had wayfinding in our building where there was like one-way street, this street, roundabout, how do you go up the elevator, where do you go? All that had to be done within a couple of weeks. We had to change the way our students were living. All of that was a tremendous effort. And the same was true for researchers. So we decided, consistent with our mission and driven by our purpose, that we have one of the world's leading research universities, especially in the biomedical area with our colleagues at the medical center. So we were one of the very first universities that got the labs open. And by got the labs open, that meant we had, because of physical distancing, they were running at 1/3 capacity. So what our researchers were doing, they brought these foldable beds and sleeping cots in there, and then they worked 24 hours in shifts in order to make sure that their experiments were going. What you hear today, when you look at the newspapers, the tremendous impact that Vanderbilt has made on the medical side in the fight against COVID is second to none. Here are a couple of examples. Remdesivir, which was the first treatment against COVID, was done right here by Mark Dennison at the medical center. You may have heard about the pill that people can take, like the Merck pill. That's Mark Dennison's work together with experts at a couple of other universities. Jim Crow was the leading force in developing what's called monoclonal antibody therapy, which is used all across the country now to treat COVID patients. And it's now being used in the AstraZeneca trial as a preemptive measure for preventing COVID, especially for those individuals that cannot have, because of immunocompromisation, cannot be vaccinated. We did the clinical trial for the Moderna vaccine. We did the early work on the Moderna vaccine, and now we're just concluding the clinical trial for the Pfizer vaccine for 5 to 12-year-olds. So across the university, tremendous impact. Add to that the work that we're doing in supporting education, for example, in partnership with Metro Public Schools, through a Peabody School of Education, and then the whole variety of other scholarship, whether it's on the legal side, the political side, the economic side, that was all connected to the challenge of COVID-19. The contribution that this university has made to the national global battle against COVID-19 is unparalleled with any other.
Yes. Congratulations on that football win and covering the point spread. Wanted to go back to your.
It was exciting, okay?
Yes. Yeah. Just wanted to, if you could talk about your childhood growing up in West Germany.
Sure.
And observations on, I guess, the Cold War period in Europe and all that.
So I was born in Berlin. I was born in Berlin in the divided city. I was fortunate to be born in the western part of Berlin. So it was a, a very unusual childhood. I mean, you're basically surrounded by the wall. And then if you want to travel anywhere, you have to drive through communist East Germany. And so my experience of a wall is that you drive up there, maybe in the early morning with your parents. And then there's, two very, very unhappy looking East German border agents with like machine guns taking away your car to make sure they didn't smuggle anybody over the border. That's not an exaggeration. So the Cold War was literally right next to my doorstep. There were many tense moments. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a period when tensions were easing. But my parents and my grandparents were very vividly aware of the support of the American military, particularly during 1948, when the Soviet Union had isolated Berlin and then cut it off from any supplies, and the airlift would come in there. At the airport, there was a monument, which was, called the Air Bridge, which memorialized that. So I had this intuitive emotional connection in the United States, but my family then moved to Munich, and as was mentioned before by Jonathan, that I'm a first generation student. So I'm the first in my family to graduate from high school. And my dad was a tailor, and then later became a kind of mid-level fashion designer, I should say. My mom did drawings for fashion magazines. My sister is a beautician. There was nobody in my family with any academic interest whatsoever. So it was a bit of an unusual childhood. And my mom now, whenever I visit her, I like to bring kind of pictures because she doesn't really know what I do. But what I can do from time, I shake hands with like senators and presidents, and that helps. And so I'll tell you a tiny little anecdote on that. So Jonathan mentioned I'm in this thing called the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. It's like, what is that? That's our Hall of Fame. So every year, from every discipline, physics, mathematics, economics, political science, 5 people are elected into the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. So it's a very big deal in our, for an academic to be in there. And but they have a category for performing artists. So when I was elected during my year, Robert De Niro and Bruce Springsteen were elected. So I could tell my mom, I'm elected here, I got for my work in political science, but there's also Bruce Springsteen and Robert De Niro. And then she said, well, that's pretty good. So it was, so you have to contextualize it. So that's that. And I was fortunate enough to get a fellowship from the German government and to go to the United States, where I arrived at the age of 23 with 2 suitcases and $1,000 at LAX airport. And then, there's a long story after that, but I'll spare you that. Thank you.
Okay. First, just to comment, I served 2 tours in Germany with the United States Army, loved it, was in Mannheim and then Würzburg.
Yes.
And spent a little time at a little town called Hof.
Yes.
On the border, and enjoyed that. But I want to ask another question. This is a big one, and Vanderbilt would loom large in this. About 10 years ago, I was a member of the University of Tennessee Parents Association, and it cost me $40,000 to join. And many of my younger Rotarians here who have kids starting college would give anything to pay $40,000 just to go to college for 4 years. How do we, and with the COVID hitting and people being able to be at home, that begs a big question about the incredible cost of education. In fact, a doctor friend of mine told me, I don't know if this is true, but he said the average debt of a MD, if they go through it all, is about $800,000, which is very hard to believe, but that's a lot of money. And he said some of them will retire and still owe money on their student debt. So what do you think?
So a lot to unpack here, and so let me give you a couple of comments on that. So the first thing to recognize is that there's tremendous diversity among universities about how they handle that question. At Vanderbilt, we are fortunate enough, and that's a decision that was made by my predecessors, is to be what's called need blind, the need blind admission, and no debt. So the way this works is that when you submit your application, we will look at your application, will not look at your financial information, and we will accept you back on your merits. And then based on your financial resources, we will provide financial information, financial support, to the sense that for those of our kids and families that have no resources, they go for free. And then that goes, and then it kind of peters in. And then once we have people that have sufficient financial resources, we will ask them to pay more. Our students graduate effectively with no debt. There's sometimes a small amounts, a few $1,000s, that's more or less a choice. And that is an enormous financial commitment, literally hundreds of millions of dollars of financial aid every year. a large part of that is supported by philanthropy. We are incredibly grateful for alumni and for parents of our current students that are supporting those that are less fortunate. What that means fundamentally, if you're under roughly, if you make under $75,000, you pay nothing. If your family makes under $125,000, you pay no tuition. So it's a big commitment. When you look at you take all of that in and you look at net tuition, so the thing that on average our families actually are paying, and you control for CPI, we haven't changed in 15 years. So we're very committed to that. We're very concerned about the financial barriers to attending a college like Vanderbilt. One of the ironies is, and one of the tragedies is that we have students now across the country that would benefit from a Vanderbilt education, but do not think about ourselves as a possibility. Then they go to a local college where they do not have the same quality information and they're paying more. So we really like where we are on that. We also provide substantial financial aid from MDs, not quite at the same level. We would love to do it, but we're just not at that point yet. There are only a handful of universities that provide as much financial support as we do. I mean, depending on how you count, we're probably one of 10 universities, less than double digits, that have as generous financial aid for our students in the entire country. And so it's a big commitment, but it's a commitment because the way we think about it is we want to make sure that we bring those students to Vanderbilt that really benefit the most from this world-class transformative education. We want to make it available to everybody, irrespective of their financial background. Having said that, when you look across the landscape, the question of student debt is very serious. It certainly is a problem, a deep problem for many families, and one thing that needs to be solved, through the public policy process. But fortunately, at Vanderbilt, we have been able to avoid those problems for our students and provide the type of financial support that they need.
Your speech was amazing.
Well, thank you.
Very well done. Your accomplishments are obvious that the leader is doing a wonderful job at creating good discussion across our youth and in these educational experiences. I have a really more important question. How are we going to win more football games? And
hey, one more win and we're at 500. Okay, so
I asked that in jest. It's serious.
I'll answer that. I'll
Okay.
answer that.
I want you to answer that, but I have a better question. If we were to walk away today based on what you see in everything going on in our world, what should we as leaders walk away with to do besides working together? Your seat for.
I love that. I'll ask the first question and then the second one. You pick one which is more important. So, we know that athletics is an important part of Vanderbilt's history and its tradition, a crucial part. We play in the most competitive division in the country. And we also know how sports and college athletics can bring a community together. And so when I arrived as a 23-year-old, I was at USC. And USC that year, 1988, was involved in a huge rivalry with UCLA. UCLA's quarterback was Troy Aikman, USC's was Rodney Peete. And we were undefeated until the last game at home at the Coliseum, where there's 80,000 students all doing the whole thing there, the chant that they do, and Conquistador, it's called. And we lost the last game at home against Notre Dame. And at any rate, it showed me what athletics and especially football can do for a college campus and for a whole community. So that's where we are. We're not where we need to be. There's no doubt about that. And so what do? Well, we made some changes. We put a new athletic director in place with Candace Lee, who, as many of you know, has 3 degrees from Vanderbilt, accomplished student athletes, the right person bleeds black and gold, has the right value and the right aspiration. Then we made some coaching changes. Of course, we brought in Clark Lee to lead our football program. Everybody knows that this is a rebuild. He knows it. He calls his team Team One. And we're going to have to create a culture of winning so that we have sustained success on the gridiron for the future. That's going to take a few years. And what we're going to do from the university side, set the right aspirations, insist on the right values and culture, and then make the necessary investment that we can attract the best students to Vanderbilt and put them in an environment where they succeed. That means facilities that allow our students to be competitive and successful and enhance the fan experience. That will not be a lazy river, won't have that, but it will be consistent with our values and put our students in an environment where they can be successful as student athletes. That's the way we're thinking about it. That's what we're committed about, and we're making great progress on that. And then can I answer the second question too? I think the most important thing is we need to understand and connect with each other as fellow Americans, as people that are committed to a joint purpose and to be able to see beyond our cultural and political difficulties. And we're not doing that right now. We are falling up, we're drifting into tribes that are no longer talking to each other, that people are forced to take sides, one side or the other. And what universities and leaders must do, I think, is to insist that the world is a more complicated place than it may look like, that real problems are complex and defy easy solutions, and that we can work together in a concerted effort to make progress. Those things, I think, need to be insisted on every day in every course of life, and I think that's our responsibilities as leaders.
Hey, Betsy. I want to honor the 1 o'clock time period, but and the Chancellor and I have not talked about this. I did say something to you earlier, but something you guys need to know. When we were in Omaha, the first time I met you, and the comment out there was that I think you were the first chancellor to go to Omaha.
Yeah.
And so it's got to start at Kirkland Hall if Vanderbilt's going to do anything anywhere, including athletics. So I saw him there. Good comments that I heard about you at that meeting. And then the other thing was I happened to be at a football game the other day, and dang if he wasn't in the I call it the football tent, but it's the Letterman's
tailgate. We have a tailgate.
The Letterman's tent. Yeah. And I've never seen a chancellor in that tent. He's the first guy I've seen do that. So to your comments about where it's got to start, the university, and particularly athletics, needs a guy like you. So I hope you come back more tailgates. I hope you get involved and you make this thing work. So thank you,
ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Wow. We do have a small gift for you. Thank you so much. That was a great message today. I couldn't agree more. This is a book that we give to our first graders when we read to them. It basically talks about the four-way test that we recited this morning, which I think is a good place to start for making decisions. We asked our speakers, if you would, to please sign that. And then when we talk to the kids, we tell them about you as well and how your leadership. And we have a pen that we'd like for you to keep while you sign. All right. Thank you. All right. I have a quote for you guys today, of course. We can get that up. Okay. In the meantime, don't forget when we close up today, I would appreciate the fact that you would put all the chairs over to the side, the tables up. Again, welcome to our guests, Lynn, Melanie, Lauren, Jamie. And here you go. If you remember, 2 roads diverged in the yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled, and also the whose woods these are, I think I know that we had to all learn growing up. I love Robert Frost, and so this is an excellent quote by Robert Frost. And bottom line is 3 words that can sum up everything you learned about life. It goes on. All right, so while we have the chance to go on, let's do something with it. Any other announcements for the good of Rotary? All right, if none, we're adjourned.
goes on. I love that.